I love my president. Just love him.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
really.
Let's
well,
continue.
You play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid. You play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But, Mr. President,
you know why I got that? Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd.
You have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
your
about
elections in this country. We're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you
to
for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what? A country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on,
traveled
let's go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Wait, what? What happened to the sound? What happened to the sound? Maybe could it be this? Be this? Did he step on that microphone and suddenly it just killed all the sound? One more time, did he? Why, yes, he did. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, but that was a classic ending. I love my president. I don't care at this point what anybody says about him anymore. I just don't care, especially those on the right who've been bashing him. And I don't like the way he says this. And why does he just keep threatening Iran? And why didn't he just end that? And why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? I'll tell you what, why don't you shut up? And if you think you can do better, why don't you run? And until then, zip it. I'm sick of my own Republican Party. I really am. My own fellow conservatives who are like whining and crying about President Trump. I think that things are coming. We're about to see. I want him on Mount Rushmore. I really do. I want the fifth president to be Trump up there, Mount Rushmore. Yep. If I can do anything about that, I'll make that happen. I'll do what I can to make it happen. George Riley is on my show. George White Wolf Riley. I like that. White Wolf. That's beautiful. And I just met him recently, and I didn't know his story. He doesn't volunteer it. He doesn't sit there and go, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I was?" Like me, I'll go, "Don't you know who I used to be?" He doesn't talk about himself. Somebody else told me, well, he's a J6er. Well, he's a great photographer, a production guy. He's worked with all these different people like Dinesh D'Souza and Dr. Ben Carson and people that I admire and think are just great. He's worked with them all. So I started talking to him a little bit and said, I got to get you on my show. So he's on today on Do Not Talk. Oh, here's his website, by the way. Check this out. This is George's website. And I know it's pronounced Jorge, Jorge, but he goes, don't call me Jorge. Anyway, Republican representative turned political prisoner. There he is right there at the top. Putting the platform before myself. I'm dedicated to supporting the values of the ultra MAGA. Right on, buddy. No matter how difficult it may be. Absolutely. Amen. I'm with you. Multimedia background. There is Michael Reagan, Dr. Ben Carson, Dave Rubin. Fantastic. There's Dinesh D'Souza. And there is some of my friends from my NorCal GOP folks right there. I'm looking forward to getting to know them better. And I'm glad you're along for the ride doing it with me. Before I bring him in, though, I wanted to ask you to do me a favor. I was just thinking about this. My friend told me, Charlie, you got to tell a story to be able to sell products. And I have products on my website. I have this mug. I love this mug. Let's talk about politics and religion. Big old 15-ounce mug. I got big hands. Look at that, all 4 fingers fit in that handle. That's what I like, big 15-ounce coffee mugs. I like big mugs. I can't deny. The Mother Brothers can't deny. I got shirts, I got hats, I got all this kind of stuff. But my friend Mike Cook said, you got to tell stories, sell products. So here's a story. I was wearing this hat the other day, and somebody said, what does that say at the top? CharLeeSimons.com? Why, yes, it does. That's exactly what it says. And thank you to my friends Greg and Linda Hanna for this new pin I got at their party just recently for my hat right there. Happy 250th birthday, America. Now, if you're not ready for making America great again, why don't you sit down and shut up for a while, put your feet up, relax, and watch the rest of us get work done. Ready? And go to my website, CharLeeSimons.com, buy some product. Unless you're one of those people that are offended by what I just said, and then screw you. Ready? Hit it.
I was looking at the pictures from Linda's barbecue, and I was like, man, I mean, like, how fat can I get?
Hey, I'm going through that same thing right now. I'm like 30 pounds overweight right now. I think I'm going to do the carnivore thing. I'm sick of being fat.
I got up to like 260. I was pushing 260, and it's not like I eat, and it's not like I don't exercise. It was just straight stress because I was going to prison. And then when I went to prison, I got back down to 226, and then they started talking about having jurisdiction over me so they could dismiss my indictment. And I was like, no, you just want to put me back in prison. And I stressed out, and so I went right back up to 260. So now I'm down to like 240, trying to get back down to 220. So I lost 20 pounds. I just need to lose another 20 pounds.
I've had about a dozen J6ers on. Very first one I had on was Eric Christie, and it was when he was actually still in. And it was one of those, you have 15 minutes, and they had to call me, and then I had to give approval, and it was on a card, and he had 15 minutes. 15 minutes, they cut him off. That was it. That was my first time experiencing anything like that. And every one I've had since then, one thing that's guaranteed is I'm going to get furious over it. I get so livid when I hear what they did to my own fellow citizens, my own fellow Americans, and how they treated you all because you showed. I'll tell you what, if I had the money, if I would have had the disposable income, I wanted to be there. I wanted my voice to be heard. I wanted to show my support for my president. I know that there was cheating in that 2020 election. I saw it. I saw a lot of it. Saw them closing down the polling places, closing down where they were kicking out the ballot observers, putting cardboard and so on up on the windows so nobody could look in as they were bringing in frickin' ballots. And that was happening in all the swing states. It was so obvious there was cheating going on. And then my own elected representatives, every time I'd bring it up with them, they would dismiss it. Tom McClintock, more than once I've said, dude, what are we going to be doing about this election fraud crap? Oh, there's not enough proof. There's not enough proof that it's actually happened. There's not enough proof that it's actually adversely affected the outcome of elections.
Anybody who doesn't vote for the Save America Act is a treasonous bastard, and they should be shot in public.
In public, he says. Let's go back. What is your story? Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Southern California in the barrio. So, when people try to call me Jorge, I tell them I'm not a Mexican. Yo soy de, como hablan español, porque yo soy de, Riverside. But I'm like, après moi, je préfère parler en français parce que après mon examen de lui, je voudrais aller à France pour finir my education, the MBA. I speak French way better than I speak Spanish. Sometimes I and I think the Mexicans, they speak way too fast. And so I try to talk as fast as them, and I'm like over there conjugating my verbs, and, it's just not going to.
So you grew up in Riverside?
Yes, I'm from Southern California, but mostly I'm from Carmichael, And then those people who live in Carmichael will say, I'm not from Carmichael, I'm from Fair Oaks because I lived on the border of Fair Oaks right by Bannister Park
Got
since
it.
I was in junior high. So I went to Will Rogers and Del Campo. And, that whole area has known me since I was a little kid.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So walk us through your journey. I know everybody wants to get right to the J6 stuff, but I want to know more about you too. Why are you called White Wolf?
That's my Native American name.
Okay. Tell us more.
While I was in prison, I was locked up with all my Native people. All my life, everybody's pointed at me and asked me what tribe I'm from. All my life, I've seen cowboys everywhere I look. All my life, cowboys want to take pictures with me. All my life, I never see Native Americans, and whenever I think I see Native Americans, it turns out they're Filipino. Um, I did my Native American studies at American River College, and I spent time with the ones at Sac City, and I spent time with the Native Americans at the Sacramento Native American Center, where I, did beading and classes out there. And I'll tell you right now, when Native Americans see other Native Americans, we point at them like everybody points at us. It's kind of awkward. So
It's kind of awkward.
yeah, they're like, "Hey, are you Native?" I'm like, what gave it away? My hair, my braids, my bandana. I'm like, what?
Didn't they make you cut your hair when you went to prison?
No, when I first got to prison, I was a self-surrender, and I tried to tell the lieutenant on duty that not only am I 100% disabled vet, but I have a keratosis disease, an eye disease, and they gave me surgery where they cut the outside layer of my eyeball off with a scalpel, and then they burned it for an hour with a laser. And so I can only see like shapes and colors. I can't like see really well, and I definitely can't read anything. And then I had recently broken my collarbone. And when I told the lieutenant on duty that these things were, I was trying to tell him that these were my medical conditions. And because I spoke to him, he threw me on the ground and he stuck his knee in my broken shoulder, and he handcuffed me and he threw me into a cell. And I used to wear a braid with the feathers in my hair to show off my native pride. And that's when the officers realized I had my braid in my hair, and I always wore it, so I didn't think about it. And they were like, "Well, we're gonna have to take that out." And I told them I would take it out if they let me just take it out. They were just little rubber bands, and they said, "Well, we can't let you do that. We're gonna have to cut it off with scissors." And I told them, "I'm Native American. You can't cut my hair." And they brought the chaplain in, and some little Asian dude walked in, and I was like, "No, I need a Native American to represent me and tell you cannot cut my hair." And they said, "Well, this is what we're doing." And 9 of them came into my cell while I was handcuffed, and they pinned me up against the wall while I screamed and cussed at them, and they cut my hair off, and then they threw me in the shoe. And when I finally got out of the shoe, I had to walk up to my Native American rep and my brothers and tell them what they had done to me. It was completely horrible and completely unreasonable, and those people should all be in trouble for what they did.
That gulag is an absolute disastrous mess. It's just full of leftist freaks who hate anybody who loves our United States of America. I've heard horror stories about the guards there, about how terrible they treated every one of you. When you said the shoe, what's the shoe? What is that? Is that like solitary confinement or something?
It stands for the Special Housing Unit. It's pretty much the jail for prison.
Okay. And
I got put in a room where there was like this concrete, if you would call it a bed, it was a big concrete square, and it had brackets on it. Like you could tell that people were used to, like they used it to like strap people to the concrete was like metal brackets on it, and all I could hear was screaming going all the way down the hallway, and it sounded like I was in an insane asylum. Yeah, but I didn't go to I didn't go to to DC. I didn't go to jail there. I wasn't in the gulag. That's a DC jail. I was
Yeah.
in Lompoc, USP, made famous by Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious. He said, "I spent 2 hard years in Lompoc, and I'll never go back." And I totally understand. Yeah.
This because you self surrendered. So they didn't come slamming down your door and kicking it in with, arms.
Oh, when they originally arrested me, they did, yeah. So when they originally arrested me, there was 3 helicopters in the sky. There was a whole army. They shut down my entire block. They had dogs. It was crazy. Yeah. They had some kind of joint task force, and they had like 9 million men to come and take me down. And I was locked up for 3 months pre-trial, and then and they didn't want to let me out. In fact, I remember my judge made, she was a white woman. She made racist comments during my hearing. My first hearing, they had me escorted down a hallway into a private room in the jail where I was issued my own U.S. Marshal. And when they took me into my first hearing, they took me into a little cinder block room with a camera and a computer there. And they handcuffed me. They chained me to my chair so I couldn't move. And they put a COVID mask on my face. And they left the microphone off. And so I couldn't comment or say anything. All I could do was sit there and struggle with the mask on my face. And my judge, she said that I was, she compared me to like Hannibal Lecter. And she said I had war paint on my face and I was wearing feathers in my hair. And I was like, oh, yeah, I was going to a Trump rally. I was like, people dress like that to go to a football game. This is 2023 at the time. I'm like, we're not back in the wild, wild West days. I'm like, you're being all kind of like, I saw a Native American movie or something. I don't know what she was doing, but
She was literally, this was the judge saying this.
Yes, it was like, would you say, well, this black guy had cornrows in his hair? I mean, like, what does that got to do with anything? And because of that, she refused to let me out of jail. And it took them a lot of fighting. And my attorney told me, he was like, they're just not wanting to let you out. And originally they had told me 20 years. And so I told people, you'll never understand what it's like to be told that you're going to be locked up for 20 years. And I'm like, literally didn't do anything wrong at all. But then they close the cell on you and you're like, this is what the rest of my life is going to be like. So
what was the reason? What were the charges? What were the charges?
Impeding on a congressional hearing, which later was decided by the Supreme Court to be inappropriate use. Aiding and abetting, trespassing in a federal building. I had like 4 misdemeanors or something, and the aiding and abetting and the 1512, the famous 1512.
What's the 1512?
That was the impeding on a congressional hearing, which is supposed to carry a maximum sentence of $250. So I got sent to Lompoc, USP, which is one of the worst federal prisons in California, arguably on the whole West Coast, for something that carries a maximum fine of $250. And I spent 10 months in that prison until the Supreme Court let me out.
10 months.
Yes. I was in a place. Only one man is supposed to be in a cell because, it's a really bad place. And I heard that the prisoners had complained about the bad living conditions. And so they punished them by taking, they put like toddler bunk beds in there. They were like not big enough for a normal person to sleep on. They weren't like even a twin size bed. So they're like little toddler bunk beds. And I would have to sleep with my hand on the handrail, and I still sleep with my hand on the handrail while I sleep. But if I rolled out of bed while I was sleeping, the first thing I was going to do was I was going to hit my celly's steel wall locker on my way down to hit concrete. And so I always held the headboard because I didn't want to fall out of my bed. And then while I was sleeping, giant cockroaches would climb on me while I was sleeping. And I would have dreams about like something like tickling me or something while I was sleeping. And I'd realize what was going on, and I'd like have to hop up out of bed and start killing cockroaches that were climbing all over me, and they'd be like all over the walls and stuff. And then there was like black mold, like the whole building was like covered in black mold. It was always on the walls. It was always like everybody was always coughing, but it was completely in our water filters underneath the building. And the Native Americans did all the maintenance for the prison. And so they would have to go underneath the buildings, and they'd be like, the reason we're all sick is because we're drinking this black mold. And it was causing people to get they would get blood in their stools, and once that started happening, everybody who that happened to, their like health totally declined. But we walked around like eating cough drops, and people worried about being sick all the time. And so the difference between my prison and some of the other prisons is that there was also a low next door and a camp. So the camp doesn't have any fences, and that's for people who have like very short time left, and they let them go have jobs nearby, and you know they're kind of on this trusted. We're not going to let you go to halfway house yet.
Work release thing. Yeah.
Well, it's on site. Yeah, it's on site.
Well, it's on site.
Yeah, so it's called a camp, and you're still watched, but you're like, we're not going to let you go to halfway house yet, but we're going to leave you on this very low level, right? And then there's a low, and the low has one fence, and then there's where I was at, the USP had 3 fences, and in between the second and third fence was 2 rows of concertina wire that were electrified. We had guard towers, and we had federal correctional officers patrolling in cars outside the fence, and there was video cameras all over the yard. And so it was like you had no chance of thinking that you were getting out of that place at all. So yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and then we have metal detectors in every room. So when you go in or out of any room, you get metal detected, and you get randomly thrown up against the wall and searched. Yeah.
So they did not take you back to DC like they did a lot of the guys.
No, they specifically banned me from being in DC. And the U.S. Marshal that I was assigned, he told me, he was like, I'm only here for you. I'm only here in case they want to send you somewhere, and then we're going on a ride. And when it got brought up to if they wanted to bring me to DC, they screamed and threw a fit and said they didn't want me in their town.
What did you do that was supposed to be so bad that made you so dangerous? Did you actually go into the Capitol building?
Yes.
Okay. Did they wave you in?
Pretty much, yes. In my first picture in my indictment, I'm walking through open doors. In the second picture, I'm taking pictures of we were talking to Capitol Police. I was like, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with walking through open doors? What's wrong with talking to Capitol Police? I was the one who rubbed my ass on Nancy Pelosi's desk. I was on the Tucker Carlson video. Yeah.
That was you?
Yes. I have a picture. I was escorted to Nancy Pelosi's office by a staffer. I have a picture.
Okay.
Yes, a staffer. I have a picture of him going like this, offering to lead me the way to Nancy Pelosi's office. And there's a video of him. There was 3 of us, and he led us to her office. In my paperwork, it says I was the one that opened up the door. But when I opened up the door and I looked in the little office, the guy next to me, he was like, "Wow, this is Nancy Pelosi's office." And I was like, "Fuck her." And I rubbed my ass on her desk and I walked out. I was like, not impressed. Well, the third guy, he took a picture sitting at her desk with his feet up. And that guy got 5 years for that. And I don't know why they ever didn't care that I rubbed my ass on her desk. But I want to reassure everybody that was not ever one of my charges. So, oh, and also I never pulled my pants down. Those rumors were egregiously exaggerated. I did not defecate on her desk. I just rubbed my ass on her desk and walked out. Also, it was like the American flag was waving through my butt cheeks when it happened. I like to let people know it was probably the most patriotic and American thing I ever did in my life. And I'm a veteran.
By the way, what branch did you serve?
I was a scout sniper and an M240 Bravo gunner with the 101st Airborne.
Dude. Hooah. That's
yes,
impressive.
Sir. 11 Bravo.
That's impressive. How many years were you in?
8.
8. Wow. You re-upped. Good on you.
Well, I went and became a nasty girl.
What's that?
National Guard.
Oh, yes, I've never heard that. A nasty
really?
girl. Oh my God, that's funny. Oh my
Weekend
goodness.
warrior.
Yeah, we should talk about that. We could swap some stories. I want to get back though to had you ever been in prison before or anything like that?
Oh no, sir. I'm 7 degrees deep. Not all the way done, but I'm supposed to be a tax lawyer and a forensic accountant. I was student body president of my college. I was one of the top Republicans in California. I was, when I first got into prison, they said they wanted to give me a shot, and I was like, "Why do I need a shot? I'm not sick." And they kept saying all these weird things to me, and I was like, could you just pretend like I'm a computer programmer and I have no idea what you're talking about? I've never been in trouble for anything. And I was like, can you say that to me? Like, well, let's just pretend I'm white or whatever it is you got to do. I'll picture me in a suit because I spent 20 years in a suit, and I'm like, anything. But I promise you, by the time I left prison, I looked like an inmate. I walked like an inmate. I talked like an inmate. I'm like everything. They turned a computer programmer into this. And I would have never looked like this. I mean, like in the GOP, they used to want to have like business casual events and stuff. And so I would take my tie off, and they'd be like wearing Hawaiian shirts and stuff. And they'd be like, why can't you dress like us? And I'm like, well, because you guys are really cool, professional leaders and you guys can do that. I'm still just a little flunky. And, I'm like, when I get to your guys' amazing status, I'll be able to wear whatever shirt I want.
There you go.
But for me,
I've been in trouble twice in my life where I've been incarcerated. One night, released OR on one, had to have bail on the other. And because I was a bit of a troublemaker before I got saved when I was 31. Never went to prison though. This is just jail stuff. I've heard stories. I have friends who have. Talking to some of your fellow J6ers. I've heard stories, and it's horrific. It's awful. It's got to be scary as hell. And I don't frighten easy, but it's got to be scary as hell because you are all alone in there, and the guards obviously they seem to detest you. Merely for the very reason that you're there because of supporting, showing your support for the United States of America. Were there any people friendly to you in there who said, hey, man, I'm one of you. I'm on your side. Come on over here. Sit at our table.
Well, I did roll with the J6ers in my prison. We had like 5. What? JB, what's up, JB? Eddie Bedallion, what's up, Eddie? Mark Brew was with me. Let's see, I guess that's about it.
That's
so
good.
There was,
5 is better than 1. 5
Yeah.
of you is better than 1. So at least you had hopefully a little protection because they'll come after you. You're not one of.
Well, I had the Native Americans. I wasn't really worried about other races. Heck no. I was like, there was like 22 of us, and we scared the hell out of the whole prison. No, nobody wants to fight with the Native Americans. We're crazy.
Good. I'm glad you had a little protection.
Oh,
Well,
that's a lot of protection. I mean, and
you're
we roll with
brand new.
the
Yeah, but your very first day, first of all, going through court, I can only imagine, especially after what you've just said about the judge and her stupid ass little comments. I can only
So I had to go
imagine.
down to DC several times. I was ordered to go there for my hearings. I had to pay for it out of my own pocket. When I got to the airport, they put 4 S's on my boarding pass. It took me like an hour and a half to get my boarding pass. And then I didn't wait in
Four,
line like everybody.
four S's, you said?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
Specially selected, search something or another. I'm voluntarily, involuntarily recommended to be searched by everybody and anything. Well, it's not true. I had to skip the TSA line. I didn't stand in the line the way anybody else did. I walked right up to the front and I said, I need the supervisor. And so only the supervisor from every airport was allowed to check me out. And then they pretty much strip searched me right there. Like if you see anybody get like the full hardcore pat down, like the hardcore pat down, they took everything out of my bags. They checked everything for explosives and powder. They gave me my gay experience. They were like, we're just gonna go up and down your genitals and then back and forth. And I was like, what is this? I was like, go fly Southwest and have your gay experience. But like there was always a dude that had to come play with my junk, and they did it in front of everybody. And they would be like, "Sir, would you like to do this in private?" And I was like, "That's even more gay." And I would scream things and made them feel as uncomfortable as I felt. I'd be like yelling, "Help! I need it! I need a grown up." I was like, "This man is
I need an
fondling my."
adult.
Yeah, I was like, "This man is fondling my junk," and he says I can't get on the plane. And then I
Stranger
got the
danger.
yes, yes, yes. I was like, I'm not a Boy Scout. Don't do this to me. But they would give me the X-ray, and then they would give me the 3D X-ray, and then after I put my clothes back on, and I dropped my one tear out my eye, I would maybe sometimes walk like 50 feet right in front of me, and they would do it again at my terminal, and
What?
they'd be like, yes. Yes, one time I saw them stare at me as I walked right in front of them, maybe 30 feet or something, and went to go get on my plane, and they made me do it all over again. Yep.
Why?
I know you can't make this kind of stuff up. You'd be
Why?
like,
Did they give you a reason? Did they say why?
one time
they had to do
I
it
was
again?
getting on
Even though
the
you had not
airport
left the
in
building?
Sacramento, and you know how little that is. And they had something like 20, 30 sheriffs there at my terminal waiting for me, and they had dogs. And the sheriff walked over, and he just kind of like was trying to like act like nothing was going on, and had this dog smell me. And I was like, well, don't act retarded, just get this over with. I was like, look, yeah, oh, you're just gonna conveniently have your dog smell me. So I don't know what to say. I was like, it was horrible. When I got to DC for one of my trips, first of all, every time I had a hearing, I always went and I got a tour of the Capitol before I had a hearing. And I was like, nostalgia, live it. But really, I just was, being an asshole. And I was like, it's just really ironic to be able to say I went and got a tour of the Capitol before every one of my hearings, and I'm good with that. But at one point, because I'm good friends with Ashley Babbitt's mama, Mickey, and she was at every one of our hearings, and I was with her and Nicole Riffett, and Mickey asked me if I would lead the prayer at the vigil outside the gulag, and I was like, yes, ma'am, I'd be honored to pray with my brothers and and talk to them. And so I did that, and at sentence, I saw Mickey, and she said, I can't go into your hearing today. And I was like, well, why not? And she was like, I've seen too many of them. And she's like, I can't watch them do that to you. And she said, I'm just going to give you a heads up. They're going to use you praying against you, and they're going to try to tear you apart and make you lose your mind. And she was like, don't fall for it. and they used me praying at the gulag against me, and I was like, well, what's wrong with me praying? And they were like, well, you're praying for J6ers, and I was like, J6ers like me? And they were like, yes, you're praying for people who are locked up. And I was like, locked up like I'm about to be? And they were like, yes, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I mean, like,
Can't?
why
You
is
cannot?
my First Amendment right to freedom of religion and freedom of speech? And I'm like, did I get my First Amendment rights suspended? What is going on? And they tried to give me more time for my sentence. They were pushing for me to have more time, because I prayed.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
I know.
How do we make sure this never happens again? Because it will.
I can't hear you.
If they got
Can you
away
hear
with
me?
this now, oh yeah, if they got away with this now, people need to be in prison for what they did to you all. They need to be in prison for this. This is
Hello?
insane. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
I can't
You're
hear
not
you.
hearing me? Oh no. Shoot. Test check, check, check. 1-1. Let me try and make another adjustment.
Hello? Sure. Oh, there you are.
How about now? How about now?
Yes. Let me
How
see if
about
I
now?
can put my ear.
Dang it.
Can you say something?
That's frustrating.
Yes, you're back.
George?
Yes, I don't know what happened. That was crazy.
We were talking against the federal government. That's what happened. We were talking against the dirty Department of Justice, as it was under Joe Biden. Actually, the question I asked was, how do we make sure that this never happens again? I don't know
The
how do
only
we
way
make
we can make sure that this doesn't happen again is if we pass the Save America Act. Sure.
I think there's another way too.
What's that?
These people who did all these horrific things need to be in jail themselves.
Well, I recommend firing squad, and I would like their bodies hung outside the U.S. Capitol.
There you go.
I think they're treasonous as life gets, and that's what you got to do to people who are treasonous.
Yeah. This is so frustrating to me and anybody watching right now who did not know these stories and may not have heard this before. They've got to be every bit as, and I've heard this several times now. There was a pattern. None were treated well. All of them were treated horribly. Were there any women who were arrested for being there on that day at January 6, 2021?
Oh yes, sir. And they kind of freaked me out. I tell them that all the time. I'm like, I meet these women who have been to prison for January 6th, and I'm just like, I don't know what to say. I don't cross those women. I have this whole policy about like not messing with Republican women, but these women are a little bit like they're a little bit harder than that. You know what I'm saying? And so
Gotcha.
yeah, no, I mean like it's like when I just got back from Colorado from going to go support Tina Peters, and I was like, free
You
Tina
were there?
Peters.
You were there when
Yes,
she
of
was
course.
released?
Yes, of course.
You're
Oh no,
saying,
I
of
wasn't.
course.
No,
Not
no,
like
no. I was like,
everybody was actually there or could go. That's fantastic.
no, I did an episode of Cowboy Logic while I was there, right in front of the prison with the J6ers, and we had Enrique Tarrio, and we had Shane Jenkins, and Machine Gun Bobby, and Rockney Earls, and various different Ben Pollock, who two of his kids were to have crazy J6 stories. Yes. It was very emotional out there. The first part of the Cowboy Logic episode, I actually tried to get Patrick Wool's mom to go on because that's on Real America's Voice, the Charlie Kirk Network. And she asked me to do it. So the first part of it was me talking about Patrick, and the second part was me talking about Tina Peters. And I'm like,
Patrick.
she would.
Which
Patrick Wool?
Patrick Whale?
Wool?
Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe so.
I always pronounced it Whale. I had him on the show too. He died just a few months ago.
Yes, I had breakfast with him.
That's where I first met you. Was at the memorial for him.
Yes, I had just had breakfast with him like half a week, maybe. I don't think it was a whole week before he died, and it was crazy because I was running late to the breakfast, and he had called me, but I ride a motorcycle, and so I couldn't answer the phone. I'm like, you can't talk on the phone while you're riding your motorcycle. That's just too much. And so I ended up having to like wait until I could pull over, and then I called him and was like, I'm almost there. But he had actually already left a voicemail on my phone, and so it was like after he I was told he died, and I was like, this can't be real. I just saw him, and I like texted him. I was like, hey homie, are you okay? And no one called me, no one texted me. Like, I tried to call him, and then I found the voicemail message, and I was like, oh man, it was like really hard to listen to, because I was like, that's my boy, and he just died. And I'm like, we went to church together, and I kept seeing him at the Freedom Rider rallies and on all these different patriotic events and stuff. Like, I just kept running into him, and then he was gone. And it's like,
Yeah. And a lot of that was because of how they treated him in prison. They denied him medical help, and he was denied a surgery that he desperately needed before he went in on his heart. He'd probably still be with us if that not had happened. These people need to be in prison themselves.
Yes.
I'm just so livid over my own government and Department of Justice, how we treated you people, you folks who are just merely showing up to let your voices be heard and to support our president and to say, yeah, we want you to take a look at, don't you certify this election. They go, hey, you're election denier. Oh no, I don't deny it at all. I am absolutely, it happened. I'm denying that it was honest. And I don't want this election to be certified as it spells out in our United States Constitution. If there's any question, basically do over, and they didn't. And Mike Pence, I will never forgive him for what he did. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry, Lord. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for saying that. And okay, I forgive Mike Pence. I forgive.
I don't forgive him.
You're not forgiven if you don't forgive. So we have to forgive. But I will, and I'll never forget what Mike Pence did to this nation. 4 years of Joe Biden when he could have stopped that.
Well, I don't know how anybody can say there's not evidence when they show you where this election is going to go on until we get the numbers we want. And it's like, well,
what's happening right now in California again?
I know, like, there's never been it's called election day, not election season, where it's like, it's going to go on for 6 weeks. And you're like, this has never, ever happened before. I'm like, what are you talking about? You have to find all these ballots. And then when all these ballots come in, they're purely Democrat only. And that's what's going on in LA right now. You're like, the polls closed and we had clear winners. And now the numbers are changing because they're going to keep letting these ballots come in. And who knows where these ballots come from. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, there you go. You're still 1.5 million votes out. And you're like, what do you mean 1.5 million votes out? They actually had hearings where they proved that dead people were enrolled on the voter ballot or on the registry. And the registrar's office said, we will clear out like 4 a month or something like that. They're like, we're not going to go through and just try to wipe this all out. We're going to pace ourselves and slowly. I mean, like, the number will never be.
So they do.
Like,
Well, You can't
In that
count
month, I don't
all
know
the
how many
deaths.
people died, but it's not as many as are being removed from, I'm like, more people
Yeah,
are dying than are being removed off the roll.
right. Um, it will happen again. What happened to you, my fellow Americans, if we just lose our minds and don't divorce ourselves from this insanity, this communism of the left, of the Democrat Party. It's all communism now. It absolutely is rampant and in your face communism. And if we don't get vigilant and actually show up for elections, stop sitting back, stop saying, well, my vote doesn't count, so what difference does it make anyway? Screw you. You're leaving the rest of us to suffer through all of this because you're not even willing to get involved because you've already given up. What's your attitude? Where is it? Do you want this again? Because I'm telling you, if we get another leftist freak like Joe Biden and Obama and all those other clowns who were running our government, our nation for 4 years, this will happen again. And they'll come after you this time. They're telling him he couldn't pray to the creator of the universe outside the jail because you were praying for those who were incarcerated. Jesus tells us to pray for the widows and the orphans and the ones who are in prison. And they're using that against you? This is insane. Are you hearing this? I hope, I pray. My Wi-Fi is so screwed up. This show,
Well,
man, dang it. We're going to have to do this again in person so we can make sure that this crap doesn't keep happening. But
I'll bring my Starlink.
Okay, bring your Starlink. Thank you. I wish I had that.
I have the roaming plan.
What's that mean?
Oh, I could take it anywhere and I could be active anywhere. I paid extra for the car adapter. And so I could just drive around and have perfect Wi-Fi anywhere I go.
Yeah, my buddy Josh Fulford at Oreo Express, he's got that too. That's quite a
Oh, Josh was with me in Colorado.
Yes, he did go there for the release of Tina Peters. He was there for that. See,
and Jen Baker from Gateway Pundit, she was on Cowboy Logic with me. And I said, Jen, you did all these stories for all these J6s and you've talked to a lot of them. I said, who's the worst? Who's got the worst story? And she was like, I don't want to talk about it. And she was just like, you guys are all messed up. And whenever you think you've heard like the most horrible story, the next person comes over and tells their horrible story. And I'm like, that's how I feel about it too. It's like, I know I got arrested by an army. I got taken to jail. I got put all over the news that I was locked up. People came and broke my bedroom window and they went into my house and they robbed me for what the FBI didn't take. I got robbed 2 times and nobody did anything about it. They took my TV, they emptied out my house. And then when I got out of jail, I filed a police report like 3 months after it had happened, and was like, hey, they took 900 Blu-rays from me, my TV, my stereo, all my stuff. And I came home to an empty house and the cops didn't even respond to my police report. They didn't even care. They were like, well, that's just what you get, And so these people who don't want us to get paid.
That's what you get.
I was forced to resign. I was the president of the California Republican Assembly. I was the corresponding secretary for the California Republican Assembly. I was running for president of the California Republican Assembly. I was a state delegate for a state senator to the California Republican Party. And they put me all over the news and they said, this man represents you, demand his resignation. And they put that all over the state and they demanded my resignation. And I wrote a letter telling everybody to go fuck themselves and called them cowards. And I resigned. And I was like, you don't deserve me. And when I got sentenced, I told my attorney, because he was telling me, he was like, they're going to want to hear an apology from you. And I thought about it and I was like, well, I'm willing to say, God bless America. And he was like, no, man, they want to see remorse. And I said, well, I thought about it and I'm willing to say, God bless America. And if you could try and get me to say anything more than that, you might as well just walk over with a torch and seal my cell because I'm never coming out of that place again. And I told them I thought about it, and I said, if I gotta go to prison and give up my life for what I believe in, I'm in good company because John the Baptist got his head chopped off after he spent some time in being locked up. I was like, all the apostles all got locked up. A lot of them got unholy crucifixions and were killed. And I was like, Daniel had to go to the lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had to go to the fiery furnace. And nobody has the balls to talk about what Jesus did. And so, like they tore that guy's beard off his face, and he was just a walking skeleton carrying a cross that's not even humanly possible. And I'm in good company. And I was like, and then soon they're gonna try and make us take the mark of the beast, and we're gonna have to get our heads chopped off. And I'm like, whatever.
Whatever.
It's like Ben Pollock says, this is not our home. This is just where we're passing through.
How did you have the money for this?
For what?
You said you had to literally appear in court in DC, but at your own expense. What if you would have said, I don't have the money? No, I can't do that. What would you have done?
They said that if you have the money to come down here and cause problems and get a case, you better have the money to fly down here and be at your court, or you're going to get locked up.
You were going to get locked up anyway. You didn't know that, though.
No, I for sure I knew I was going to get locked up. In fact, there was all this talk, all these people sitting there saying, well, I would never have taken a plea bargain. And I'm like, well, you're out of your mind, because they have BLM people on our freaking juries that said they believe that these people could be fair and impartial. I'm like, I just was in a fist fight with this guy outside, and you're going to bring him inside the courthouse and you're going to put him on my jury? Shit, JB had 3 attorneys on his jury. There's no chance you couldn't get
attorneys
a fair trial.
Who were part of the jury.
He said that in DC is the only place where you could have attorneys on your jury.
Probably.
I can't imagine that goes good. That's like the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. Next to having judges. Like pick a chess piece, but like judges on your jury. You know what I mean? I'm like Obama appointed. Like Obama staffers. Can you come get some? Let's think about what kind of people would be your worst nightmare to be on a jury. And I'm like, the odds were all stacked up against you. They never let me have discovery. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act is the cornerstone of forensic accounting. And so if anybody wants to talk about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2003 and the millions of piles of fraud that led to the act being codified and put together bipartisan by Sarbanes and Oxley in the Senate, if anybody, I'm about to be a lawyer. I should be able to defend myself in that courtroom, and I could not defend myself in that courtroom because they were not practicing law. They didn't care about my due process. I kept saying, you're putting the cart before the horse. They gave me a public pretender who the only thing he cared about was getting me to sign a plea deal. I was like, well, I would like to see discovery.
I've heard about that plea deal. Didn't it include something about this was all Trump's fault? Basically.
I think that they tried to get things from different people. They never tried to get any of that from me. My plea deal was, they said, here's what you get. Either you accept the felony and you take 18 months, or you take it to court and you're going to get 56 to 72 months. And I'm like, anybody in their right mind, who I'm going through being in jail, I'm getting ready to be in prison. This is very real in my life. I had no guarantees that they weren't going to rig his election again. And if Donald Trump wouldn't have got reelected, I would not be out of prison. I guarantee you, I would still be in prison.
All of you would still be in prison. All of you.
In fact, when the Supreme Court let me out of prison,
for President Trump.
Yes, sir. And when the Supreme Court let me out of prison, my attorney told me, just because you're out of prison doesn't mean you can't come back. And I definitely believe that everybody was letting me out because they were anticipating that Trump was going to get back into office.
You got let out before he pardoned everybody.
Yes, the Supreme Court let me out. When the Supreme Court they threw out my felony, and it was the only thing that I had for charges. So when the Supreme Court said my felony was inappropriate, I spent 4 days walking around the prison telling all the guards, "Hi, I don't have any charges. Can I go home? I don't want to be here. I would like to leave." And I'm like, I'm being held against my will, making it very clear that I am a man in prison with no charges, and I would like to walk out the door and please let me go. And so 4 days later, they let me out. But I'm like, I definitely vocalized that I'm being held against my will. I'm an innocent man. The Supreme Court has just ruled that my felony was inappropriate. I'm a man locked up in prison with no charges. I would like to leave. And they wouldn't let me out. I was already innocent before that, but at least now I had a piece of paper.
How did that happen? Who instigated that? Because it's not like the Supreme Court all of a sudden went, well, we're going to look at this guy's case. Where there had to be others. It must have been some kind of almost a class action kind of thing for, I don't know.
No, it was a Fisher case, and the Fisher case, he had the 1512, and he appealed it, and when they applied the law, they said it was inappropriate. And so I have,
what's that?
That's the impeding on a congressional hearing. We never were impeding on a congressional hearing because that case that charge.
Oh, that one. Okay, that's right. I'm sorry. You said that was one of the charges. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah,
that was at the very beginning.
That's for like if you are having a hearing and you're like destroying evidence, and you're like, well, I'm going to go through and burn all my files of whatever it is they're trying to talk about. It's like, well, I'm going to go wipe the Hunter Biden laptop.
Like Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, I'm going to destroy that server. And I'm like, those are the cases where the 1512 would be applicable. The charge that I have was more supposed to be like, well, you give him a ticket, like when Biden was doing his State of the Union speech. And
they could have continued just because there's some noise.
They did. They rolled Ashley's body over and they just kept voting. Yeah. So, like during Biden's State of the Union address, there was one of the fathers, his son. He was a Gold Star dad, I guess you would call him. His son was killed, and he got up and started screaming during Biden's presidential State of the Union. And he was escorted out of the building. He was not given a ticket. He did the same thing that I did. I did not damage anything. I did not break anything. All I did was walk around, and the whole beginning part of, I must have been I thought I was in the Capitol for 3 hours. They say it was less than that. But it's like, for example, when I walked in, I went over and none of the doors were locked. I walked out into this little hallway, and I walked out onto the balcony, and I have some beautiful pictures of January 6th because I had my Nikon around my neck. And I was out there on the balcony taking panoramic photos. I'm sorry to all the J6s if I got you in trouble because I got really nice pictures of you. But while I was out there, this elderly Capitol Police officer comes out, and he's a little old man, and he goes, "Hey guys, you're not supposed to be out here. This is an off-limits area." And I said, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see any sign that said I couldn't be out here. I apologize." Right. And I said, "Come on, guys." I said, he says we're not allowed to be out here. Let's go back inside. And we walked in, and we were very cordial to him, and we apologized. We weren't trying to break any rules. We didn't think we weren't allowed to be out there. I'm like, I've never been to the Capitol before.
Especially after guards and uniformed law enforcement representatives were waving people in.
Yes, and that kind of conversation that I had with that guy, I had many conversations with different Capitol Police officers that day, and then all of a sudden, it was like something happened. They got given some kind of,
that directive. I'm quite convinced that directive came from your girlfriend, Nancy Pelosi. Let them in.
Well,
Let them in, and then we'll really be able to turn this against Trump. We'll really be able to turn this into something horrific. That's why she didn't want the National Guard there. That's why she didn't want any extra protection. She didn't want to try and stop us from doing what we did. That's why we were waved in. Many of us, I have friends who were there who have not, at least so far, had no one knocking on their door, thank God, but they're still paranoid over it. And that's why they won't go on my show. They don't want to talk about it, but they were actually there. And they said, yeah, no, we did not go inside. We just kept thinking, this is not right. This doesn't seem right. Why are they letting people in? Why are they've moved barriers? They moved frickin' barriers, and all of a sudden they're letting people in. Somebody made that phone call.
Well, they didn't want to hear it at any of my trials, and they kept saying, well, why did you go in the building? And I told them, well, they started throwing concussion grenades at us. And I was like, soldiers like me, when I hear explosives or gunfire, we go running right at it. And so I went running right at it. I climbed up the scaffolding. I went up into the building. When I got into the building, they acted like nothing was going on. And I'm like, no, they're throwing concussion grenades at us. They're shooting us with CS pellets. I'm like, something's going on. We're just sitting here not doing anything wrong at all. We have a permit. We have a permit to be where we're at. There's no reason to be throwing concussion grenades at a permitted assembly. They've never done that for anybody else before.
No, hell no. It was like they were trying to push everybody into just a rage. It's like they were completely instigating.
And so I was walking through the crypt, I believe it was, and I had this red flag moment where I looked over and I saw a fire extinguisher was sitting on the ground. And I've been in a lot of government buildings, and I've never seen an unsecured fire extinguisher. And this thing was just like, it was just like freaking me out. And I turned around and I looked at it like 3 times. And then I walked into this hallway, and there was like 6 or 7 Capitol Police, and they were like stacked up the width of the hallway. And there was like 2 more Patriots down at the end of the hallway. And then all of a sudden, this like 6'3" military style, blonde haired, short haired guy comes running into the room, and he sprays that fire extinguisher, and he hit those Capitol Police officers with the spray. And I went diving into the corner to get away from the fire extinguisher spray. And then he turned around and he ran back into the crypt. And I looked at them, and they looked like they had just been bug sprayed, and they had "I'm having the worst day of my life" written all over their face. And I was like, well, I just want to like go over and help them stand up and help them. I was like, that looked like it sucked. And I don't know why that guy did that. I was like, well, why would you do that?
I don't know why a fire extinguisher would be sitting there out in the open in the middle of the floor like that either.
So somebody
could
do that.
Wanting that to happen.
Yeah. Well, I felt like I had just walked into some like really bad episode of some kind of TV show or something, because why would police officers be staggered like that so that they could all be in a single line to be hit by the fire extinguisher? It was like it was all staged or something. And so they were getting up by themselves. And so I just let them, and I kept my distance, and they all got up and they walked single file into a room. There was a door right in front of them. And I was like, well, that's just like some really bad acting or something. I don't know what to say. It was just really weird. And then I walked back into the hallway.
Stand in a line. Somebody's got to come in and spray you with fire extinguisher stuff. And then when you exit, all come back out the same door.
Mm-hmm. And then I walked back into the other room to see where that guy went, and I didn't see him. I don't know where he went. But when they said that he had thrown the fire extinguisher and had hit a Capitol Police officer, I was like, that never happened. No. So I was there. And then they started telling us that they wanted us to leave the building. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Walk through the wall? I'm like, if you could tell me how to leave the building, we might leave. But when we got into the last room, the Capitol Police, they had came in with shields, and they surrounded us, and they tried to crush us alive for what felt like an hour. And so I had a girl in my arms, a little tiny girl, and I was like trying to flex my arms so that she could have room for her lungs to expand. And I mean, like, you can only keep your arms, I don't care how strong you are, you can only keep your arms flexed for so long before you're too tired. And at one point, this guy, his wife got away from him, and he was like, "Hey, grab my wife, please." And I grabbed her, and so I got a woman in both my arms, and I'm sitting there flexing my arms, trying to help them not be crushed. And man, that one lady, she was wearing a jacket too. That had to be so hot. Um, and eventually, one of the Capitol Police got pulled in with us, and the one of the Capitol Police had a hold of the back of his jacket and was trying to pull him out of the crowd. And I was like, "We're not going to hurt your friend." And I was like, "If you just let us go, we'll leave." I'm like, we're not having this. I'm like, I don't know how long you're going to crush us for, but I mean, like, it was so hot and there was like no air, and everybody was being smashed together. And I heard the little lady in my hands. She cried out, "I feel like my bones are going to break." And I tried to, or she said crush, and I tried to like flex my arms again, but I was so dead. I was like, there was no way I was like holding that forever. And then eventually the Capitol Police let us out, and most of us just like walked out the door. But then we stood on the steps fighting with them still, and it was weird because it's not like we're like fighting with them. We're like trying to have a conversation with them where we're like, "Why are you mad at us? Why aren't you in there arresting them? They're committing treason. You're supposed to be on our side." And I remember at one point the Capitol Police officers were like, "We want to leave. Can you clear a hole for us to leave?" And we literally made space for them to come walk through us. And the one lady that was in my arms, she hugged all the Capitol Police officers, and I patted them on the back, and we tried to let them know, hey, we weren't mad at you because we understand you're like trying to do your job or whatever it is that they're telling you.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
probably got a family at home, and I'm like, I can't like say that for those people that were just doing their job that we're mad at them, but just doing your job is not throwing grandma down the stairs, and just doing your
Or
job
shooting
is not.
Ashley Babbitt in the face.
No, that's a tiny little girl. I mean, like, she was 120 pounds with a backpack on and soaking wet. I mean, like, my leg is bigger than that. There were plenty of us guys around. You could have shot any one of us. We wouldn't have said nothing. Been like,
You wouldn't have
what I mean?
said nothing. Oh well.
Not my first time being shot.
Dang it!
I was
I got
like,
shot again. Crap.
I mean, I got shot with CS, liquid CS 3 times in the eyeballs, and I'm like, you didn't see me bitching. I was like, damn it. But that was about it, I was like, whatever. Some lady helped me flush my eyes, and I was back to screaming.
How are you doing now financially? This had to ruin you. You come home, your home's been broken into. Everything's been stolen out of there. There's nobody there to help you. You lost your position with the Republican Party, which I'll tell you what. Thank you for bringing that. Thank you for bringing that back. That memory, by the way, I had almost forgotten how my own party treated you all, and it was pathetic. And I'll tell you what. You wanted to see me react quickly and loudly. Just say that in front of me. And I had a lot of them saying that. Well, if they actually broke the law, went to the Capitol building, they deserve what they got. You don't even know any of the facts. You don't know what happened. You haven't talked to anybody. They're not showing any video. You don't really know the story, do you? Don't ever say that again. Don't ever say that again. Unless you want somebody to say that about you sometime in the future. And not have somebody like me stand up and go, wait, what? What did you just say? You're telling me they all deserve what's happening to them? Nobody, none of my fellow Americans deserve what happened to you all. I was livid at my own party for turning their backs on you. I still haven't really gotten over that. Maybe that's the problem I still have with my own GOP, at least in California. There's a way so many of them so quickly, and especially our elected representatives, turn their backs on you.
Well, luckily, my buddy Tom Hudson, he was like, we don't throw our friends under the bus to please our enemies. And so there was, a small amount of people who didn't turn their backs on me, but for the most part, yeah, they all turned their backs on me.
They
And
sure
they all
did.
kept saying, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "What did you think I did?" And I'm like trying to figure out what kind of person I think I am, because I'm like, they kept wanting me to apologize, and I was like, well, if I did something I thought I should apologize for, I
Apologize to
would.
who? Apologize for what?
I didn't do anything
For
wrong.
showing up and making your voice heard?
It was one of the most patriotic things I've ever done. I don't know what to say.
Well, I agree. And like I said, if I could have been there, I sure would have. I wanted to be there.
Well, everybody
I
who
wish I
met
had the
that-
money now. I would show up for this 250th celebration and the president's birthday on June 14th. I would be there for all of this if I could. If I had the money, man, I would be there. And screw the consequences. I don't care what anybody thinks anymore at this point, especially in my own party. I just don't care. I'm much more concerned for people trusting me than liking me anymore. That's far more important to me than anything else. So trust me to always keep putting people like you on that nobody else seems to want to talk to. I'm going to keep doing that. And even after the fact, oh, well, everybody stopped talking about that now. Really? Did you? Okay, well, you go ahead and not talk about that anymore. And then let me know how that works for you when it happens again.
that was probably one of the
'Cause
most
if you don't-
stressful parts about being in jail or being in prison, was they never stopped talking about it. I'm like, it was always on the news the entire time.
Oh, I'll bet.
I mean, like, even now they're talking about, they said, Gavin Newsom said that if we finally get any money for the things that have happened to us, he's going to tax us at 100%. And I was like,
100%.
so,
He's going to take the money away from you.
which I'll still owe 20% to my lawyer. So however much money they would give me would mean that I would have to pay my attorney, and I would still owe the government 100%. So I would lose 120%.
And then again, our own fellow Republicans turned against President Trump when he tried to make that happen, tried to establish that. They turned against him.
Yeah, they need to be primaried.
They do
They're
need
treasons.
to be primaried. They
They
are
don't-
treasonous.
Well,
Yeah.
I know. I mean, like, I really mean, when
I
I say
agree.
primaried, I really mean like hung and then have their bodies hung from the Capitol. But yeah, that's how I feel.
No,
I'm like, this is what happens when you're a treasonous.
I think you said shot. You didn't say hung. I remember the first time you said shot.
And then I said shot, and then have their bodies hung.
Hung. Have their bodies hung. There you go.
Yeah. The bodies hung. I was like, so everybody can see, just like Game of Thrones, and be like, that's what happens.
Oh man.
What the founding
how are
fathers
you
would have
doing?
done.
How are you doing now? How are you doing now financially? What are you doing? How are you getting by? Do you have a family? I don't know anything about you.
I pretty much lost everybody and everything. So, I mean, like, even my mama died. That was something me and Patrick had in common. I was like, my mama had just died, and his dad just died. And I was like, we had to go over to our parents' houses, and we had to like rent a U-Haul, and we had to pack up their houses, and then we had to go take it to the dump. And I was like, I spent $400 to throw away my childhood. And he was like, me too, except for I had to go to San Jose to do it. And I was like, yeah.
Are you working?
No. I just been trying to survive.
How are you getting by?
Well, I'm a disabled vet, so I get some money.
Okay, so you're getting that.
I have credit cards, and I constantly run them up trying to get through life. Well, I'm hoping that at some point I get paid, money for having my whole life taken from me. But when most of us J6ers are just trying to survive till then. I mean, like, for example, I have just talked to a J6er this morning, and he was working electrical in Florida, and he was just fired at random. And it's like, well, really, no one's ever going to really want to give you any kind of job. I'm like, we just need that's a fact. I'm like, because I told people, I was like, Trump may have pardoned me, but Google will never forget. I was like, you Google my name, and it'll be like J6 insurrectionist all over the place. And I'm like, so it doesn't matter that I wear this vest that says, I'm a pardoned J6 insurrectionist. I'm like, it's all over the internet.
Your website, I pointed out your website earlier, which is georgeriley.com. George spelled with a J, Jorgeriley, and .com. Is there a way that we can help you there financially? Do you have a Give, Send, Go or something like that?
I do have a Give, Send, Go, and it's put up there, and all you gotta do is go to the donate tab on there, and everything's available. Yeah.
I'm always talking about buy my mug, help me on the show, buy my mug. If you can give, please go to my website. And I'm always saying,
gas is $7 a gallon. I'm lucky I can only have to buy 2 at a time.
Exactly. That's
I was
why
like,
you're
my motorcycle don't hold that much more. 2.3 gallons.
Buddy, I drive a dad-blamed Honda Pilot, and it cost me $120 to fill up when I was just a few weeks ago. I was stunned. Almost $120, just shy. It's got an 18.5 gallon tank. It's insane. I can't even go anywhere. I'm stuck here too. I ride as well. I got a motorcycle as well, but I also got a dog I got to take with me everywhere, so I can't really do that with him. But
no, I understand. My baby mama's got a Honda Pilot too, and
they get terrible mileage. At least mine's a 2011, 15 miles per gallon. Terrible mileage, but what a fun vehicle. And I thank God for it. It's got 220 something thousand miles on it now. I've driven the heck out of that. But the reason why I brought it up with the website and the mug and all that stuff was not to throw out another pitch, but to say, I don't want you to buy anything of mine right now. I want you to please go to George's website, and I want you to please help him. I'm begging you, please, to help him. I would if I could, but shoot, I think I'm making $50.22 this month from Rumble. I'm not doing any better, buddy. I'm on that fixed income thing now too. I'm that fixed income guy that I always said I would never be. That's what I get for saying never. But I get you. So are you still in the Northern California? I'm not quite sure where you live. Don't tell me. Don't say exactly where, but give me an idea.
I live allegedly in Alberta. So I'm in Placer County.
Okay, Placer County, gotcha. Dang, why couldn't
I don't know if I was going to make it in Sacramento, because people kept like nobody will say it to my face, and I did have people sit there and go, well, how come these Antifa type don't stalk you and bother you the way they do other people? And I'm like, because I will fuck them up. But in Sacramento, I had a lot of people screaming at me from the streets, and everybody knows who I am, and they're willing to get really far away and yell something and feel like they did something. No one's gonna say it to my face, but I moved to Placer because I was like, well, I'm like, they're more accepting of my love for my country than Sacramento. Sacramento's very blue.
Lost. It's very bad. It's because 80% of the population has a government job, and all of them belong to some kind of creepy union, and that's they're getting paid tremendous amounts of money for doing their phony baloney jobs. They're now whining about being told they have to go back into the workplace to do their jobs, and they're literally suing the state government, saying, no, we don't want to go back. And what's the reason? Oh, well, it will impact the environment, all these people having to drive back and forth to the office. That's their only reason. And it's the unions that are doing it, because they sure love getting, they already did next to nothing when they were working in the buildings.
Yes.
Now they're doing even less, sitting at home, getting paid tremendous amounts of money. And Governor Newsom goes, this sucks. We're paying all this rent for all these buildings we can't get out of because we're under leases. We can't just say, forget it, we're leaving, because they want to grow the government, grow it. but that's what they do. That's what they do best. And it's hilarious to me watching this. These stinking public service unions for government employees fighting against the employer. Our state representatives we're paying their salaries, and they don't want to go back to work in the workplace. That's how insane California is, brother. I want out. I even if I'm going to wait.
It's always been my dream to live in Nevada where they have no state tax.
That's not the only place that has no state tax, and Nevada's
I heard
very
Florida
purple
does
as
too.
well. Yeah, that's right. Florida, Tennessee. There's several places that have no state tax, but I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. If
Well,
Steve
every
Hilton
time I
gets
turn
elected,
around, they try to take away any chance I have to get my money. So I'm like, who knows? I mean, and then General Flynn, he only got $1.25 million. I'm like, but BLM and Antifa got $20,000 or $10,000, I guess it was, per day that they were locked up. 10,000 for every day. It's crazy.
you serious?
Yes, sir.
I had not heard about this.
In fact, Ashley Babbitt's family got $5 million, while George Floyd's family got $30 million. So a drug addict that was committing fraud, he was trying to pass off counterfeit bills when he got arrested and was all hyped up on drugs.
Holding the loaded 9mm semi-auto pistol or a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach, threatening to kill her and the baby. That's your George Floyd. That's your St. George.
$30 million.
Dang it.
And Ashley Babbitt was an Air Force veteran, and her family got $5 million. I was like, I just want to get paid as much as my enemies.
Yeah. That'd be nice, huh? What can we do to help besides pray?
Well, prayer is the biggest part. I mean, like, I know when I was locked up, especially like when I was in jail during COVID, and they only let me out of my cell like for 20 minutes every 3 to 4 days. And they'd say, you can either make a phone call or take a shower. And a lot of times they'd say the phones aren't working. And so I don't think I would have been doing too good if I didn't like feel that people were praying for me. I was like, that's the most important. I think I've only survived like this. I think all J6ers only survived like this because people were praying for them. Yep. I still got to get my head back. I'm like, I used to walk around in a suit all the time, and you would be like, I want that guy to represent me, you know, and I tried to be like the best model I could be, and now I look like a thug. In fact, they made this vest so I could address my identity crisis. I was like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I was like, well, I'm a veteran, and I love God and my country, and I'm a pardoned J6er. And I was like, that's who I am, and those are the things can't be taken away from me. You know.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm proud to call you a friend now. I'm glad I met you, and I'm glad I know you, and I'm glad I had you on the show. And
yes,
let's do it again. GeorgeRiley.com, JorgeRiley, JorgeRiley.com. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Hooah. Okay, that was a hard show. The rest is up to you. I hope you follow through. I hope you can help him out. He's not a grifter. Trust me on this. I'm very good friends with some of his great friends. He's not a grifter. Probably doesn't even want handouts. That's very hard. When you're a proud person, it's very hard to ask for help and accept help. You just want to say, no, thank you. I'll be good. No. It'll all work out. Pray about it. How about that? Pray about it first. Okay. I've done what I can do here. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God.